This podcast is brought to you by Racing Thread, Formula One clothing for literally any occasion. Their clothing features subtle, evocative, embroidered designs of your favorite F1 moments. From Ricciardo's McHorsey entrance to Kevin's first pole. From Pierre and Yuki's bromance to Inspector Seb. The moments are endless. Whether you're out to dinner with friends, watching the race at home, or cheering in the grandstands, gone are the embarrassing sponsor logos. Instead, Racing Thread is F1 clothing you're comfortable wearing anywhere. Right now, Dirty Driving listeners can get 15% off Racing Thread's entire range of t-shirts, sweatshirts, polos, and bucket hats using the code Dirty Driving. Head over to racingthread.com to shop F1 racewear for anywhere. It's chaos. It's a different type of Sunday scary. It's your newest obsession. It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast. Hi, everyone. Hello. It's Tuesday evening. I'm all messed up from traveling, and you'll be listening to this at the earliest Wednesday morning, but it was quite the weekend. Welcome to the post-weekend recap for the Canadian Grand Prix. It was an interesting weekend, and I had the privilege of being there. So before we get into what actually went on this weekend, I wanted to chat a little bit about my experience. And if you guys have been following the podcast for a while or listened to the pre-weekend episode or whatnot, you know that this was my second year at the Canadian Grand Prix. And I think we, as in my family, have figured out the best way to Grand Prix Canadian style. Last year was a huge learning curve in terms of what to expect, what we needed to bring, what time we should get there, what entrance we should use, everything. And I've decided that the more you go, the more you know. Because even this year, we were like making notes of like, oh, like we could do that, we could do this, we can, little notes for next year. So yeah, if you're looking for like a in detailed, these are all the things to know about going to a Grand Prix, at least from my experience, hit me up, let me know, and I'm happy to hop on a call and chat about it. I wanted to, tell you guys a couple of my like go-to tips, which I will, but for like a full in-depth, here's how to do it, here's what I know, reach out to me and I'd love to schedule a time to chat. Because like I said, the more you go, the more you know, and the more you like start to pick up on and figure things out. So having been, I knew the layout of the venue, so there wasn't really any getting lost and trying to figure out where to sit. But that does not mean that I was not up first thing every morning to be one of the first people in line, because on Saturday and Sunday you are running to your spot, you are staking it out for the day, and you've got like 10-ish minutes to get to your spot before everyone else gets there and takes the spot you want. So we treated Friday as our day to wander the venue. It was my mom's first time going to a Grand Prix, so we really wanted to, give her the full tour and show her everything that was there. So we hung out in the fan zone. We did the pit stop challenge and got under 5 seconds, so I was impressed by that. And we also won out of the little trio that we competed against. And then there was also this, I don't even remember what it's called, but they like blew air on your face so it would, I guess, simulate what it would be like on a takeoff or like the start of the race. And they video you while it's happening, and the pictures and videos from that are hands down the best moments, the best, I guess, segments, little clips from the weekend. I posted a couple on social media on Instagram, but I'll put them up there again after this goes out. And then we also got to enjoy FP1 and FP2 from a different vantage point. We watched at the hairpin because usually and we did this on Saturday and Sunday. We were camped out in our spot, dubbed the poor man's paddock, against the fence near the end of where the grid lines up at the start finish line. So we're across from the Haas garage with AlphaTauri and Aston Martin garages right there. And then we are like lined up with the last cars in the grid at the start of the race. I like sitting there, and I'm so glad we found that spot last year because you get to see all of the things that go on right before the race. Like all the teams come out on the track, they get ready, the cars do, their first warm-up lap, not the formation lap, but like the lap to get them on the track. And they all the teams run out and have all the instruments needed, and they go and get the car and wheel it up to the spot it should be in. And it's just like the closest I've ever been, I probably might ever be, to like being on track for the start. So it's so interesting to see that. And then, because you see it on TV where it's like, 30 seconds till lights out, they do the formation lap, and all the teams like run back into on the other side of the fence where the pits are. And it's just like, it's such unorganized, organized chaos because they do it every week. So like they know what they're doing, but it's crazy. And then you get to see in that little section of where the fence is opened, you see like the commentators walk through. We saw Gordon Ramsay. We did not see Martin Brundle this year. I think he started from the other end. But yeah, with Laura Winter, Lawrence Barretto. It was great. And at one point, there was a chef that came out and was like over in the paddock taking a picture. I'm sure he was, the chef of the event or whatnot. And we always like to yell like funny things to like try to get some response from whoever we're yelling at. And I yelled, "Yes, chef!" And like he turned and waved, and everybody clapped for him. So if for some crazy reason you are the chef that is listening to this, that was me. I did that. I made your day. Yep. Going off of what I said about like the more you go, the more you know, we upgraded our setup this year. So last year, if you remember, we had our trusty water wicking tarp, which we brought with us this year again, which was great because on Friday when the FP1 was like canceled, whatnot, we'll get into that in a moment, we laid that tarp out, and my mom, my sister, and I all laid there and took a nice nap in between FP1 and FP2. We also had foldable chairs for everyone, and I found these on Amazon. They pack up into like a 12 by 6 bag, if you will, like carrying case, and they just unfold and you pop them up and they're low to the ground. They're actually super comfortable. However, the group next to us on Sunday had like the 2.0 version of these chairs that had a higher back so you could rest your head. And we are definitely upgrading for next year because we took quite a few naps in between sessions, whatnot. And many times I was like bended over at the 90 degrees, sitting in a chair, like sleeping with my arms folded over my knees and my head down. So, given maybe a new chair upgrade moment for next year, we may just be able to lounge back and not have to rest our head on our knees. We also had plenty of ponchos. I don't know if you guys recall last year, but it was also raining on Saturday, and Megan and I had walked into the venue first and bought 4 ponchos. And then right after that, our dad and PJ, Megan's fiance, walked in and also bought 4 ponchos. So we had 8 ponchos in total last year. We brought those back this year, and thank God we did because it rained all Saturday again. And then the other like upgrade that we did was we brought a deck of cards with us. Specifically, we actually brought the game Face 10, which is a family favorite. And that kept us entertained in the morning before session started, which was a great add. And like, it's super easy to throw that in your bag as well. So my top tips. always be prepared for rain and be prepared for it to be colder than you think it might. On Saturday, when it was raining, I got there an hour before my family and staked out the spot. But by the time they got there, I was already cold and like a little wet. I had my poncho and I had a sweatshirt, but like 2 hours later, I was like, that's it. And I went and bought another sweatshirt. I bought the cheapest one I could. It was $150, and it's just this like light pink sweatshirt that says F1 on the front, and that's it. So bring your layers if it's going to be on the chillier side, and just like have options for the day because the weather can fluctuate up and down. With that, you got to get there early and be there the whole day. You've paid to be there, you've paid for the tickets. There's other action happening on track when F1 isn't on track. So get there, enjoy it, be there, get there early, get your spot, stake out your spot, go wander while, part of your family holds down the spot. Enjoy it. There's a lot to do. There's food and drink, but there's the fan zone that has different activations. There's other companies that are there with other activations. In Canada, they have a Heineken zone where it's like fun lounge chairs and hammocks and whatnot that you can relax in and drink Heineken at. So there's things to see and there's things to do at every track. At COTA, there were, you could get a tattoo, you could get permanent bracelets, you could do this and that. So there's normally always like some fun thing to do while things aren't happening on track, or maybe they are and you're just off doing other things. Do not wear your new shoes. I saw many, and like that comes with the caveat that it did rain all day on Saturday, so it was wet and muddy Saturday and Sunday, but I saw plenty of people in what looked like their brand new shoes that were covered in mud. And like that's one of the realities of going to a Formula One race is like you're at a track where there's gravel, some pavement, and grass. So be prepared for mud and be prepared to like not have pristine walkways. That's like my hot tip is don't wear new shoes and also wear super comfortable shoes because you'll be walking and moving all day. Get plenty of rest leading up to the weekend, especially if you're the voted member of your family to be there early. My alarm was going off first thing every morning. The gates opened at 8:30 on Friday and Sunday and at 7:30 on Saturday. And I was there by what time was I there? I was there by 6 on Saturday and I was there by 7 on Sunday. So get your rest. I'm exhausted. I'm probably going to be sick this week, but again, it's all worth it for being on track at a Formula One race. A couple others: dress comfy. You're going to be sitting, you're going to be standing, you're either going to be sweating or you're going to be shivering and it's going to be rainy. So choose function and comfort over fashion. You can still make function and comfort cute, and style it to how you want, but you don't need to be in heels or wedges or anything like that. Put your sneakers on. Do not wear sandals. I saw so many people in Crocs and other sandals, and not only were they absolutely freezing on Saturday and muddy, but like it's just like not a place for sandals. Like wear your tennis shoes, wear your sneakers, you'll be fine. Map out your journey to the track. Know where you're going. When you get there, before you even get to Canada, wherever you're going to be, figure out how you will get from where you're staying to the track, and then how you'll get from the track to where you're staying. That's super important. I feel like everybody has Uber downloaded on their phone these days, but like in the off chance that you don't, always have Uber, taxis, whatever it might be, as a backup. And finally, this was like the biggest learning curve from last year to this year is make dinner reservations for every evening and give yourself a good amount of time to get out of the circuit, out of the track, out of the venue, and like back to the city, depending on, where the track is to the city, but make reservations. Last year we were scrambling to find places and made one reservation for Sunday at the beginning of the weekend, but This year, I think like 3-4 weeks ago, I made reservations for every night, and I could have done it earlier as well. There is something very special about experiencing a weekend on track. Being surrounded by so many people who love Formula One is the coolest part. And I think sometimes, and maybe this is more so for Americans and maybe even more so for women who are fans of this sport, but being an F1 fan can feel almost lonely some days. You've got your go to people that you can talk to F1 about, and luckily, I found a bar here that I can go, and there's people out, there to watch F1 that I can chat with. But compared to how community works with other sports of like soccer, basketball, baseball, football, anything else that I'm missing in the US, like I feel like everyone knows at least a little bit of something about every sport that's prevalent here, whereas not a lot of people know about Formula One. So most times, like even when I'm like, oh yeah, like I love Formula One, they're like, oh my God, that's so great, blah, blah, blah. And they know it, but they don't like know it to sit down and have like a good, thick conversation about it. So yeah, I feel like being an F1 fan can feel lonely at some points. So being in the environment with hundreds of thousands of people who also love the sport, the drivers and the teams, it's just like heartwarming and like a reminder that the sport is continuing to grow and more people are continuing to become fans and learn it and know it and be willing to sit down and have a conversation and learn with each other. So that's just always like one thing that I'm reminded of now that I've been to 3 races is like, oh, like I'm not the only one. And like, yes, you see the fans in the stands on the TV every weekend, but it's just like it's not the same. Like being there and being in the atmosphere is like, okay, like people are passionate about this just like I am. The funniest moments of the weekend came when we were out to dinner each night. So the Hornsby family does not discriminate when it comes to which teams and drivers we like. I feel like most of the time, at least like in the majority, if you see a family attending an F1 race, they're all in the same team merge. Like they're a Red Bull family, they're a McLaren family, they're a, whatever family. And like maybe you'll even see like 2 teams in the family. No, the Hornsby family, each one of us is representing a different team or a different driver. In fact, I think every day each one of us were in different teams merch. I wore Mercedes, I wore Ferrari, I wore AlphaTauri, I had my Williams hat, I had my Aston hat, I had my Mercedes hat. Like we mix. We do not just pick one and that's our team. We are about all of them. So picture a group of 5 people sitting together representing 5 different teams or drivers and knowing that they're a family unit. We got comments each night about the range of love for the teams, and people were like, that's crazy that like you all support different people, rah rah rah. So like that was just funny to hear, I guess, outsiders looking in be like, that family probably debates and discusses Formula One crazier than any other family because they're all fans of different teams. So it was nice. And I would say like my family, like we all like slash love slash sometimes dislike all the drivers and all the teams. So it's fun that we all show up and, have different merch to wear, and we're not just like so like singular in who we root for. Like we're happy and we love everyone. So it's a nice little atmosphere that we've created as a family in terms of so it's a nice little atmosphere we've created in terms of a family loving Formula One. Okay, let's get into the drama of the weekend. So, FP1, only 12 drivers were able to set a time during the session. It was red flagged due to Pierre Gasly having to stop, and it was never resumed due to the fact that the CCTV were having issues. There was like no feed, which is a safety concern. So the session never resumed after the red flag, which ended up being called with about 10 minutes left. And the FIA, the stewards decided to extend FP2 by 30 minutes. Valtteri did top the timesheets in FP1, followed by the Aston Martin duo. FP2 saw 2 red flags thanks to Nico stopping on track due to smoke and Ocon being told to stop after a suspected loss of water pressure. The session's last 10 minutes were hit by a very quick moving storm, which caused some flash flooding on track, for lack of a better term. I don't know if it was actually flash flooding, but it appeared to be. There were puddles and whatnot. And so yeah, at one point Valtteri was like, yeah, this is good for a duck. It's good conditions for a duck, not for a driver. Lewis and George put up the quickest times of the session. Saturday, like I've said, I think 10 times this far, was wet. It rained all day. So FP3 kicked off with the drivers on full wets. They were able to switch over to the intermediates, and we went 3 for 3 on red flagged practice sessions due to Carlos Sainz spinning at the barrier at T1, damaging both the front and rear of his car, completely lost the whole nose of the vehicle. Max ended the session in the top spot, proving that Red Bull were still the ones to beat this weekend. Qualies came in the afternoon. In Q1, we saw Tsunoda, Gasly, De Vries, Sargent, and Zhou out. Q2 was topped by Alex Albon. Crazy. Go him. We're going to come back to him in a moment. But it also saw Leclerc, Perez, Stroll, Magnussen, and Valtteri out. Q3 saw Max take pole with a shock Nico Hülkenberg in second place. So Oscar Piastri brought out the red flags by rear-ending the wall at turn 7. And right before the session was stopped, Nico Hülkenberg set that fast lap time, earning him the spot on the second row. The rain kept coming and got worse, meaning that the times did not get any better, and the session was actually over with a few minutes remaining because everyone went back into the pits knowing that if they put the full wets on, the times are just going to get slower and slower. So essentially, they all just said, we're calling it. Following the session, Hülkenberg, Sainz, Stroll, and Tsunoda were all hit with 3 place grid penalties, giving us a interesting layout for the race. The stewards found Nico guilty of a red flag infringement. So Nico failed to slow down under the red flag, which is usually punished with a 10-place grid penalty. However, since Nico was just coming off his fastest lap, he was able to slow down to where he should have been. But the stewards ended up comparing his speed to Esteban's and saw that they were approximately at the same speed for the rest of the track. And so they regarded this as a mitigating circumstance, which is the reason why he only received a 3-place grid penalty compared to a 10-place grid penalty. After the session, it was investigated that Sainz impeded Gasly while Pierre was completing his last lap, which caused him to go off track to avoid Sainz at the final chicane. Tsunoda impeded Nico, and Lance impeded Esteban, giving them both 3-place grid penalties as well. Sunday brought us quick. It was quick. I don't know if it was just being there or whatnot, but the race was quick and relatively chill. Max led the race into the first corner with Lewis Hamilton getting around Fernando. It was spicy. That was a great move. A few laps in, Logan Sargent was asked to stop the car, which brought out a virtual safety car and ended his race. Max reported that he hit a bird, which ended up being in his brake duct the rest of the race, while Russell ended up running over the curbs at turn 8 and 9. Because he ran over the curbs, he lost the rear and slammed into the wall, bringing out the safety car. He was, however, able to make it back to the pits and rejoin the back of the pack, thanks to the safety car holding everyone up, so he was able to, catch up to everyone before the race restarted. During the safety car, however, there were a few unsafe releases with Hamilton and Norris. Stewards also noted a potential overtaking under the safety car with Ocon, Valtteri, and Magnussen, but no penalties were handed out for these moments. However, Lando Norris was handed a 5-second time penalty for unsportsmanlike behavior. He drove unnecessarily slow under the safety car to free up space and allow both the McLarens to pit at the same time. At the end of the race, he was asked about it, and he was like, oh, what did he say? He was like, unsportsmanlike behavior? I'm not unsportsman, so it couldn't be me. And that's kind of like all he said about it, and it's whatever. At the end of the day, the stewards are like, bro, you slowed down so you could gain an advantage for the team. We're slapping you with a fine. And with a fine, I mean a 5-second penalty. Alonso was able to get around Lewis at the final chicane to move up to P2. De Vries and Magnussen had this weird moment where they like touched at turn 2 and then they both went off into the runoff area. They were able to rejoin the race, but they were in the back of the pack. Lap 55 saw George Russell pit and retire due to brake concerns, and Alex Albon was able to hold off a DRS train of Ocon, Valtteri, Norris, and Stroll. DRS train and traffic were like the two keywords of the race. We had a DRS train essentially the entire race. There were maybe like 3 small segments of time that there was not a DRS train. Verstappen almost knocked himself out of the race. I know, like, you were so close to doing it to yourself and you didn't. He ran over the curbs and like almost lost the rear just like George did, but he ended up winning the race by 10 seconds. And I have to put a little asterisk there because yes, he still won by 10 seconds, but if you look back at the previous gaps, the distances between the winner and second place, we're talking like 25, 20, 18 seconds. So the fact that we're down to like 9.8, 9.7, something like that, 10 seconds is a much better spot than we were before. I don't know what this is due to. It might be Aston Martin's upgrades, it might be Mercedes upgrades, moving them closer to the top of the pack, or it might be the fact that Red Bull made some alterations so they weren't as quick as they were. Max's Montreal win ties him with Senna's career total of 41 wins, and it also gave Red Bull their 100th Grand Prix victory. Alonso took his 6th podium in the season's opening 8 races, which is twice as many as he has scored in his previous 7 seasons combined. Lewis Hamilton was 3rd in the Mercedes, and Montreal is now the 8th circuit on which Hamilton has recorded 10 career podiums. Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, Albon, Ocon, Stroll, and Bottas round out the top 10. Alex Albon's P7 was Williams' best result in a race since George Russell was 2nd at Spa in 2021. Yes, that was the half points race, so I went and found that the last full points race was Nicholas Latifi in 7th at the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. Alex took driver of the day after his not only impressive Sunday but impressive weekend. He made his hard tires last 58 laps, 59 laps, up there in the 50s, giving him the opportunity to score points for Williams and take one of their best results that we have seen thus far. For my winner, it's Valtteri this week. It's been rough for the Finn. You guys have heard me talk about it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's distracted or what, but he was back in the top 10 for the first time since the first race this season. And this 1 point moves Alfa Romeo clear of Haas in the fight for P7. Losers, I have 3 of them. The first one is Haas. It looked promising with Nico starting in 5th, but he lost ground after he stopped out of sequence with the safety car during the race and was simply unable to fight back with the pace of the Haas. Kevin had a frustrating race with that weird run-in with De Vries, and so Haas are now pointless for the third race in a row. Logan Sargent. Logan failed to get sufficient time on the new track for him on Friday and did not have the upgrades for Williams as there was only enough for one car. He did pretty decent in qualifying, being only the second time running with wet tires, but the early retirement due to the oil leak leaves him stuck at the bottom of the championship while his teammate Alex is in P12. I don't know if Actually, I know we're not going to see him next year. It'll be a miracle if we do. My third loser of the weekend is AlphaTauri. They lost both the cars in Q1. Yuki struggled with pace, and Nick was stuck in traffic. They are now the last place in the championship standings, failing to score a point in the last 4 races. I'm not really sure what's going on with AlphaTauri, but things are not pretty, and I need Helmut Marko to show up and intervene and do something about it because things are not gelling this year. And I love AlphaTauri. I love Yuki. Nick is getting better in my opinion. But still, I want Yuki to be able to get up in the points weekend after weekend and really show us what he can do and what I know he can do. It's a dishonorable mention this week. One that I thought I would never be giving one to. It's Sergio Perez. Checo has missed Q3 at 3 consecutive races and hasn't finished on podium since Miami. It's not looking too good for him, especially since Max is out here dominating, winning, topping the charts, all of the above, and Checo's like failing to do so in the fastest car on the grid. He's not sure what was going on this weekend with the pace, but Pierre Gasly was fired from Red Bull, like the A team, Red Bull team, not AlphaTauri, for much less than what Checo has given us in the last couple of races. So with silly season coming and whatnot, Checo's stuck, but is there a demotion that comes? Is there a mix-up that happens? Should they buy him out of the contract if he continues to not perform? This is something I'll be keeping my eyes on very closely because I love Checo, and I don't know if it's just he's not been given the same car as Max. Like, okay, we know he hasn't been given the same car as Max, but what is causing him to not perform at the level that we've seen he's capable of? And we've seen he's capable of that this year. It's not like it's been a while. We saw it a couple races ago. That's a wrap on the Canadian Grand Prix. I'm sure I missed something. One thing that I didn't talk about earlier about going to a Grand Prix and like being there in person is I feel like you miss things that are happening throughout the weekend. The whole weekend I was like trying to keep up between Instagram and Twitter and F1.com and all the other sources I use, but it's not the same because like you're on track and your cell service isn't that great sometimes, or you're out of roaming data in a different country or whatnot. But there's like it's not the same being at home where you're like not there, so you're trying to consume as much as possible versus when you're there and like trying to be in the moment and like enjoy what's happening. Or like I definitely feel like I miss things that have happened. So let me know if I did miss anything that I haven't talked about, because I'd love to know. But other than that, we have a bye week next weekend, and then we're off to Austria for the Red Bull Ring, which always provides a interesting race. In the meantime, I will continue to post content from the weekend on Instagram, so feel free to go check that out. And like I said earlier, if you're looking for more details, more info, links to the chairs, links to the water resistant tarp, whatever it might be, outfit ideas, literally anything, any questions that you might have about going to a Grand Prix, about planning to go to a Grand Prix, finding tickets, all of the things, don't hesitate, reach out. Would love to talk to you about it and would love to like give you a very personalized answer to your questions so I can help you in the best way that I can. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Dirty Driving. Until next time, stay dirty. This podcast is brought to you by Red Racer Books, a children's book series about the marvelous world of motorsports. Looking to get the kiddos in your life interested in Formula One? The series includes the ABCs of Racing, which teaches concepts about racing with Red Racer as your guide. The 34-page book is full of gorgeous illustrations inspired by actual tracks and racing situations around the world. The series also includes the book All About Race Cars, a guide to Formula One race cars. Red Racer is joined by Roxy the Engineer, and they walk you through all the ins and outs of F1. This book is packed with 40 pages of beautiful illustrations teaching STEM facts about F1 cars. Red Racer Books is on a mission to give kids in the US and beyond a global perspective on sportsmanship, diversity, science, and technology. Dirty Driving listeners can get 20% off Red Racer Books' entire series using the code Dirty Driving. Head over to redracerbooks.com to buy the kiddos or the adults in your life their new favorite book.